Well, long time for a chief coffee chat. Got my coffee. Just heard Peter Doocy from Fox News give details on what happened yesterday between Trump and Putin. I'm mad. I said it before, you do not reward an aggressor, especially Putin, because USSR and Russia has already pulled this stunt at least twice. They did the Winter War, which happened way back in 1939. We still got 14 more years before that becomes 100 years old, where they invaded Finland. And as I said previously in my military videos, I went to Finland. And we went to Suomussalmi, where the two divisions got totally destroyed on the road. And our Finnish military escort took us down it's a dirt road, because they're like, there's nothing over there to go visit on this dirt road. We got our villages, they've got villages. That's it. There's nothing worthwhile to go see over there. So as we're driving down the road, we saw occasionally, especially on bends and turns in the road, where there were trench lines and fortifications. Not manned, but ready to be manned. And we drove as close as 3 kilometers. We got to a top of a hill, and we're talking heavily pine forest, heavy forest. I mean, if you weren't on the road, you'd be walking through forest and you would not be able to walk a straight line. That's how thick the trees were. So like I said, we got to a top of a hill, and then the road sloped down and then started sloping up. It was a pretty straight road where we were at, because like the guy said, there's nothing out here. So the road goes straight to Russia at that point. Once it gets into this heavily forested area, because this part of they had chopped down all the trees on either side of the road, so that way giving a misconception for the invading force. Hey, we got this wide, and then all of a sudden it narrows to a dirt road. He said, we're 3 kilometers. He says it's 3 kilometers. It's up over this hill. He said, that's as close as we're going to go. We don't want any incidences happening today, because we don't trust them. And so they lost land fighting and winning for a while, but once the winter was over with, hence the Winter War, when the spring started doing what it's going to do, but then it's just going to make the ground soggy, because that was mostly marshland. But by that time, the USSR had taken one of the major cities, and they're like, we're done, because once spring is over with, the spring thaw is over with, we'll lose. So they didn't want to surrender their whole country. But then during World War II, they sided with the Germans in the hopes that they could get their land back. They did get their land back, and they also told Hitler, that's all we want to do. We're not going to give you troops to invade the USSR. We're going to invade our previous border from the Winter War, and that's where we're stopping our war. So when the Germans were in full retreat, late 43, Finland said, well, we're ending our participation in this war. USSR, please don't invade us. We're kicking the Germans back to Germany. And that's exactly what they did, but they still ended up losing more land. When Georgia separated back in 1991, I think it was, like all the other satellites of the former Soviet Union, they went to war. Didn't look it up, don't remember what year it was, but they lost 2 of their provinces, or oblasts, whatever they call them, in Georgia, because they lost North Ossetia, and then they lost, every time I think I can pronounce it, I can't. It begins with an A, and it's where a major naval base is. So Georgia fought a brief war. They surrendered land to stop. I don't know what was in their constitution, but yes, I voted for Trump, but someone's got to tell him you don't reward the victor, or the aggressor, I mean. We got to stop giving Russia land every time they go to war. What are we going to tell Estonia? They don't have 40 million people. Latvia doesn't have 40 million people. And Lithuania doesn't have 40 million people like Ukraine does. They're much smaller. I didn't look up what they got for populations, but it's a lot tinier. So what are we going to tell them if Russia decides to invade them? Oh, surrender some land or lose all your country. No, it's got to stop. And I heard that Putin will stop the war if he gets Luhansk and Donetsk. I didn't hear any mention of surrendering Crimea back. I heard two provinces will be surrendered and the war will stop. All it's going to do is just put the battle lines, or next battle line, closer to Kyiv. Plus, it's also taken a lot of those minerals that I think we just signed a deal with Ukraine. And there was even the rumor I heard on another video saying that Washington bigwigs wanted to make the Ukraine land that was being held by Russia currently today would become, still belong to Ukraine, but would be Russian controlled. And supposedly we would make deals with Russia to extract the minerals and all those high yield stuff that we want, but the money would not go to Ukraine, the money would go to Russia. I heard that was a rumor, and it turns out it's a dumb rumor. But now I've heard, yeah, surrender 2 of your provinces. Everybody keeps harping on our Constitution and the Constitution of the United States. But Trump's trying to do a good thing. He wants to end a war. I don't blame him. I have a vested interest in this conflict, and I hope it ends. But he's a good negotiator. But he needs someone. It looks like no one's telling him about military treaties. I mean, what if we ended World War II and told Germany, oh, by the way, you lost the war, but you get to keep all the land that you conquered? Yeah, that didn't happen, because there would be no Netherlands, there would be no Belgium, no Luxembourg, no France, no Poland. I mean, there'd be a lot of countries gone, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Hungary, a lot of land gone. Then there would have been the Greater Germany. But let's honor the Ukrainian Constitution. Now, the Ukrainian Constitution, because last year when the presidential race was going on here in the United States, I noticed that Republicans kept bad-mouthing Ukraine. You haven't had an election. It's in their Constitution not to have an election during a major conflict. We had President Lincoln got reelected during the Civil War, and FDR got reelected, once or twice? 40 before the war, before we ended the war, and back in 44 when we were still in the war, World War II. That's the only 2 times that we've had elections during wartime. I don't think we had any during World War I, because Wilson got elected on the promise that we wouldn't go to France to fight the war, World War I, or the Great War as it was called. It wasn't called World War I. They didn't know it was going to be a World War II. A lot of people just don't understand that. Oh, it's World War I you're talking. No, it's the Great War. So let's honor their constitution. I have it right here. I typed in Ukraine Constitution land surrender. It says, Ukraine's constitution prohibits the surrender of territory without a nationwide referendum making any agreement involving land cessions illegal under domestic law. Goes on to explain it have to be a referendum, and I assume that means that the government would have to approve it. That's not going to happen overnight because the people will probably protest in Ukraine, and they'll have every right to protest. Yes, we all want to see this war end, but at the same time, stop rewarding Putin. He's not going to stop, even though I keep hearing all these ridiculous claims that he can be ready to go to war in 5 more years. I don't think so. He's got a lot of hardware to replace. And we're not just talking tanks, we're talking trucks, we're talking armored vehicles. I mean, this war has been a clearinghouse of munitions and hardware and all kinds of vehicles. And of course, he doesn't even have a navy anymore. He's lost what, almost half his navy? Black Sea Fleet is almost non-existent. Pacific Fleet just suffered some losses. I don't think the Baltic Fleet, the Baltic Fleet I think lost a vehicle. And then they just wrote off their only aircraft carrier that has been in repair for like the last several decades. They just wrote it off. Now they're going to scrap it. They're going to scrap their only aircraft carrier. So, and his air fleet is half gone. Yes, he's got a lot of spare parts sitting in planes parked on the tarmac to maybe replace some planes or build up some planes that are missing parts. But they haven't made a plane in eons, especially all those bombers. Those are back from the Soviet era. So, I'm hot. I'm mad. I was screaming earlier. I didn't want to scream on the video. You don't reward the aggressor. You do not tell Putin, yeah, go to war, don't win, but you'll get land. No. And as Ukrainians would say, NYET. Of course, they'd add a couple curse words. I know a couple curse words. I'm not going to say them, even though they're in Ukrainian. They share at least curse words, it seems like, with the Russian language. So, this is Chief's Coffee Chat. Do not surrender land. Do not tell. I know everybody's going to be bad-mouthing Zelensky because he's supposed to show up next week. Here's the deal. Surrender 2 provinces. Peace. Peace in our time. Just like with Chamberlain. Someone's already brought that up too. If you know anything about peace in our time with Lord Chamberlain. So, stop. And everybody, like I said, everybody's going to be mad at Zelensky next week. Well, we got you a deal. You negotiated with the big dog, the aggressor, and come to the guy that got invaded and say, here's the deal, take it or leave it type deal. No. Don't reward the aggressor. Tell Putin, show him pictures like you did, like, yeah, here's your secret house. It's going to go bye-bye if you don't pull out of Ukraine. He's done that before. He can do it again. He keeps saying, yeah, there's going to be sanctions. Who cares about sanctions? They're dirty. They're crooks. They're corrupt. I can't stop. I'm sorry. Don't reward the aggressor. Chief out. Freedom is not free.